November 1944. Somewhere over the Philippine Sea, the P-38 Lightning descended through 12,000 feet at 400 miles per hour. Twin Allison engines screamed. The pilot's hands were steady on the yoke. Below him, 18 B-25 Mitchell bombers flew in tight formation toward their target. Behind them, trouble. 12 Japanese Ki-43 Oscars had materialized from a cloud bank at 10,000 feet. They were diving on the bombers. Fast. Predatory. The kind of attack that ended with burning aircraft and parachutes that never opened. The P-38 pilot didn't radio for help. He didn't wait for his squadron. He rolled inverted and dove. The mathematics were simple. 12 enemy fighters, 1 American. The odds were suicide. But this pilot had learned something that textbooks never taught. He had learned that courage could compensate for skill, that proximity could replace precision, that if you flew close enough, if you held your nerve long enough, the mathematics changed. At 8,000 feet, he leveled off behind the enemy formation. They hadn't seen him yet. Twin booms, twin engines, twin vertical stabilizers. The Japanese called it the fork-tailed devil. They had learned to fear it. The pilot selected his first target, an Oscar at the rear of the formation. Range 200 yards, still too far. He closed, 150, 100, 70 yards. His thumb found the trigger. 4 Browning 50 caliber machine guns erupted from the nose. The concentrated firepower was devastating. 2 seconds, 106 rounds. The Oscar disintegrated. Metal fragments tumbled through the sky like confetti. He didn't watch it fall. Already moving to the next target. 60 yards this time. Another 2-second burst. Another enemy fighter gone. The Japanese formation broke. Panic. They scattered in all directions trying to understand where the attack had come from, how one aircraft could be in 3 places at once. But the P-38 was already on the 3rd Oscar. This one saw him coming. Tried to turn, too slow. 75 yards. Trigger press. Fire smoke debris. 4 minutes had passed. 3 enemy aircraft destroyed. A 4th Oscar attempted a head-on pass. Mutual suicide. The textbook said break off. The pilot didn't break. He held his course. Waited. Waited. At 100 yards he fired. The Oscar's canopy shattered. The aircraft rolled left and fell. 2 more Oscars tried to bracket him. Classic pincer. The pilot barrel rolled right, bled speed, let them overshoot. As they flashed past, he reversed hard, got behind both. 70 yards to the first. Trigger. 60 yards to the second. Trigger. 6 enemy fighters destroyed. 7 minutes of combat. The remaining Oscars fled. The B-25s continued to their target unmolested. Not a single bomber lost. The P-38 climbed back to altitude. The pilot's hands were steady. His breathing was calm. The photograph mounted on the instrument panel showed a young woman with dark hair and a gentle smile. Margaret, back in Wisconsin, waiting. The pilot was 24 years old. His name was Silas McCrae. He had grown up on a wheat farm in a town most people had never heard of. His hands were calloused from 15 years of farm work. His father was a Swedish immigrant who had never learned to read English. Silas McCrae had learned to fly because a barnstormer landed in a field when he was 9 years old. He had learned to fight because his country went to war. And he had learned to kill at close range because he couldn't hit anything from far away. By December 1944, Silas McCrae would destroy 40 enemy aircraft. It would be a record among American fighter pilots, a record that would stand for 80 years, a record that has never been broken. This is how a farm boy from Wisconsin became the deadliest pilot America ever produced. This is the story of the mathematics of courage. Ashford, Wisconsin, 1920. The town of Ashford occupied 11 square miles of rolling farmland in central Wisconsin. Population 843. 1 general store, 1 church, 1 school, 16 farms. The nearest city was 60 miles south. The nearest airport didn't exist. The McCrae farm covered 240 acres. Wheat, mostly. Some corn. A vegetable garden behind the house that Silas's mother tended every morning before sunrise. The farmhouse was 2 stories. White paint peeling. Roof that leaked when it rained hard. 9 children shared 4 bedrooms. Silas was the oldest. His father, Lars McCrae, had arrived from Sweden in 1903 with $8 and a pocket knife. He spoke broken English. He could neither read nor write, but he understood soil. He understood weather. He understood that land would take care of you if you took care of the land. Silas learned to work before he learned to read. At age 5, he fed chickens. At 6, he hauled water. At 7, he drove the tractor. At 8, he could fix the tractor when it broke, and it broke often. His hands developed calluses. His back grew strong. He learned that machines had logic, that if something didn't work, there was a reason. Find the reason, fix the problem. Tractors, pumps, threshers, Silas could fix them all. But machines didn't interest him the way the sky did. The Barnstormer, 1934, summer, 1934. Silas was 14 years old. He was in the south field with his father inspecting the wheat. The crop was good that year. The stalks stood chest-high golden in the afternoon sun. Then came the sound, a mechanical growl from the west, getting louder. Silas looked up. His father looked up. The entire town of Ashford looked up. An aircraft, a biplane, red paint, yellow wings. It circled the town once, then descended toward the McCrae farm. Lars shouted something in Swedish. Silas didn't hear. He was already running. The biplane landed in the north field, bounced twice, rolled to a stop. The engine coughed and died. A man climbed out, leather jacket, goggles, boots that had seen better days. Fuel pumps shot, the pilot said. You folks got a mechanic nearby? Lars shook his head. No mechanic, just us. The pilot looked at the farmhouse, looked at the barn, looked at Silas, who was staring at the aircraft like it was a creature from another world. You know anything about engines, kid? Silas nodded. I can fix our tractor. The pilot smiled. Close enough, let's take a look. 3 hours later, Silas had the fuel pump working. Used parts from the tractor, some wire, and a piece of rubber hose. The pilot was impressed. You got a gift, kid. What's your name? Silas and McCrae. Well, Silas McCrae, you just saved me a long walk. How about I pay you back with a ride? Lars started to object. The pilot was already helping Silas into the front cockpit. 30 seconds later, they were rolling. The engine roared. The biplane lifted, and Silas McCrae saw his farm from the sky. The wheat fields formed a quilt of gold and green. The farmhouse was a white dot. His father was smaller than an ant. The entire world spread out below him like a map come to life. The pilot let him hold the stick, showed him how gentle pressure made the aircraft turn, how pulling back made it climb, how pushing forward made it dive. The biplane responded to touch the way a good horse responded to reins. They landed 15 minutes later. Silas climbed out. His legs were shaking, his heart was hammering, and he knew with absolute certainty what he wanted to do with his life. He wanted to fly. Learning to fly, 1940, 20 years old. Silas worked the farm every day, fed the animals, repaired equipment, harvested wheat, but every dollar he could spare went into a coffee can hidden under his bed. Every nickel, every dime, every quarter from selling eggs at the general store. By his 21st birthday, he had $52. There was an airfield 30 miles east, a grass strip with 2 hangars, and a flight instructor named Walter Hess, who charged $2 per hour for lessons. Silas rode his bicycle there on a Saturday morning in May. Took him 4 hours. Walter Hess was 60 years old, bald, missing his left index finger from a propeller accident in 1923. He looked at Silas and the coffee can full of coins. You got money for 26 hours. That'll get you solo if you're quick. Won't get you a license. I just want to learn, Silas said. Walter studied him, farm boy, calloused hands, honest eyes. You ever been in an aircraft before? Once, when I was 14. You get sick. No, sir. Then let's see if you can fly. The aircraft was a Piper Cub, yellow fabric, 65 horsepower engine, maximum speed 87 miles per hour. Silas climbed into the back seat. Walter took the front. They rolled. They lifted. They climbed to 3,000 feet. Walter demonstrated straight and level flight, demonstrated turns, demonstrated climbs and descents. Then he said, your airplane. Silas took the stick. The Cub responded like the biplane had, gentle, forgiving. He flew a rectangle pattern, climbed to 4,000 feet, descended to 2,000, turned left, turned right. After 40 minutes, Walter said, take us home. Silas lined up with the grass strip, reduced throttle, let the speed bleed off, held the nose up. The Cub settled onto the grass like a feather. Walter climbed out. You're a natural kid. Come back next Saturday. Silas came back every Saturday for 14 months, 28 hours of flight time. He learned takeoffs and landings, stalls and recoveries, emergency procedures, navigation by dead reckoning. He soloed after 12 hours. By hour 28, he could land in a crosswind without bouncing. Walter wrote him a letter of recommendation. Best student I ever taught. Natural touch, cool under pressure. He'll make a good pilot. But Silas had a problem he didn't discover until later, a problem that would almost end his flying career before it began. He couldn't shoot. Army Air Corps, 1941, December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor. Silas was listening to the radio in the farmhouse when the news came. Japanese aircraft, surprise attack, battleships burning, thousands dead. His father looked at him, didn't say anything, didn't need to. Silas was 21 when he tried to enlist. The recruiter laughed. Come back when you're 18, kid. He came back 6 months later with a birth certificate that said he was 24. The recruiter didn't look closely. They needed pilots. They needed them badly. Silas McCrae signed the papers. March 1942, Hamilton Field, California. Flight training for the Army Air Corps. 200 applicants. 50 would graduate. Silas was one of them. He excelled at formation flying, excelled at navigation, excelled at instrument procedures. The instructors praised his smooth control inputs, his situational awareness, his ability to remain calm when things went wrong. Then came gunnery training. The target was a towed banner, 6 feet by 12 feet, bright orange, towed behind another aircraft at 1,000 feet. Student pilots attacked from various angles. Each aircraft carried guns loaded with paint rounds, different colors for different students, blue, red, green, yellow. After the training flight, instructors counted the paint marks to determine scores. Silas flew his first gunnery mission in June. He attacked the banner from the textbook angles. Opened fire at 350 yards, held the trigger for 3-second bursts, compensated for deflection, led the target exactly as the manual specified. When they landed, the instructors examined the banner. 47 paint marks total, 6 were blue. Silas's color was blue. 47 pilots had fired. Silas had landed 6 hits, 12% accuracy. His instructor, a captain named Morrison, pulled him aside. McCrae, you fly like a dream, but you shoot like a farmer. I am a farmer, sir. Then you better learn to shoot like a pilot, or you'll wash out. Silas tried. He studied deflection angles, practiced lead calculations, flew 10 more gunnery missions. His scores didn't improve. 11%, 10%, 13% on his best day. The problem was simple. At 350 yards, the target was moving. The shooter was moving. Wind affected bullet trajectory. Gravity affected bullet trajectory. The margin for error was enormous. Small mistakes compounded. And Silas, despite his natural flying ability, couldn't master the mathematics of long-range gunnery. Captain Morrison called him in after the 10th mission. McCrae, your flight scores are excellent, top 5 in your class. But your gunnery scores are bottom 10. The Air Corps needs fighter pilots. Fighter pilots need to hit what they shoot at. Silas nodded. Yes, sir. I'm giving you 2 more training flights. If your scores don't improve, I'm recommending you for bomber duty. Navigators don't need to shoot. Silas didn't sleep that night. He had come to California to fly fighters, to defend his country, to fight the enemy that had attacked Pearl Harbor. The idea of sitting in a bomber calculating wind drift while someone else did the fighting made his stomach turn. There had to be another way. He thought about the farm, about fixing tractors, about finding solutions when textbook solutions didn't work. The manual said shoot at 350 yards, but what if the manual was wrong? What if the problem wasn't his aim? What if the problem was the distance? At 200 yards, the deflection angle would be smaller. At 100 yards, smaller still. At 50 yards, you didn't need to be a good shot. You just needed nerve. The next morning, Silas requested a special training flight. Solo, no instructor. Captain Morrison approved it with reluctance. Silas took off at dawn, found the towed banner, circled to attack position. But instead of opening fire at 350 yards, he kept closing. 200 yards, 100 yards, 70 yards, 50 yards. The banner filled his windscreen. He pressed the trigger. 2 seconds. Paint rounds saturated the target. He broke right, climbed, came around for another pass. 50 yards again. Trigger. 2 seconds. Saturation. He made 8 passes, never fired from more than 70 yards. When he landed, the banner looked like it had been painted solid blue. Captain Morrison was waiting on the flight line, arms crossed, face unreadable. McCrae, do you have any idea how dangerous that was? 50 yards. You could have collided with the tow aircraft. You could have gotten yourself killed. Yes, sir, but I hit the target. Morrison looked at the banner, looked at Silas. You hit it all right, but that's not how we teach gunnery. Sir, permission to speak freely. Go ahead. The manual says fire at 350 yards. I can't hit anything at 350 yards, but I can hit everything at 50. Isn't that what matters? Hitting the target. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. McCrae, you're either crazy or brilliant. I haven't decided which. But you're right. Dead right. Hitting the target is what matters. The question is whether you can do it in combat without getting yourself killed. I'd like to find out, sir. Morrison nodded slowly. Then you better learn to fly the P-38, because if you're going to fight at 50 yards, you'll need an aircraft that can take the abuse. The P-38, Lightning, the Lockheed P-38. Lightning was not a forgiving aircraft. Twin engines, twin booms, tricycle landing gear. It was fast. It was powerful. It was also complex. Student pilots called it the Widowmaker. Silas climbed into the cockpit for the first time in August 1942. The instructor gave him a 1-hour briefing. How to start the engines, how to manage the superchargers, how to synchronize the propellers, how to prevent compressibility in high-speed dives. Then the instructor said, "Don't crash." Silas didn't crash. He flew the P-38 like he'd been born to it. The twin engines provided redundancy. Lose one engine, you could still fly home. The nose-mounted guns, 450 caliber machine guns and 120mm cannon were concentrated. No convergence issues. Where the nose pointed, the bullets went. And unlike single-engine fighters, the P-38 had no torque roll, no propeller trying to twist the aircraft sideways. It was stable. It was steady. It was the perfect gun platform for a pilot who needed to fly close. Silas graduated flight training in September 1942. Top 5 in his class for flying, bottom 10 for gunnery. But Captain Morrison's final evaluation read, "Unconventional approach to combat tactics. Recommend assignment to experienced unit where his skills can be properly utilized." The Army Air Corps sent him to the 5th Air Force in the Pacific. His commanding officer was a general named Marcus Harmon, and Harmon had a reputation for appreciating pilots who thought differently. The incident, November 1942. Before shipping out to the Pacific, Silas had 2 weeks of leave. Most pilots went home. Silas stayed in California. He wanted every hour of flight time he could get. One morning, he signed out a P-38 for a navigation training flight. He filed a flight plan that took him north along the coast. Standard procedure, nobody questioned it. He took off at sunrise, climbed to 10,000 feet, then descended towards San Francisco Bay. The Bay Bridge connected San Francisco to Oakland, 2 massive towers, steel cables, hundreds of cars crossing in both directions. Morning commute, rush hour. Silas descended to 500 feet, pushed the throttles forward. The P-38 accelerated to 350 miles per hour. He flew under the bridge. The clearance was less than 50 feet. The twin booms missed the water by 20 feet. Cars on the bridge above screeched to a halt. People on the shore stopped and stared. Silas climbed back to altitude, turned south. There was a Navy shipyard in Oakland, ships under construction, cranes, workers, security. He descended to 200 feet, made a low pass directly over the shipyard. The P-38's engines thundered. Workers dove for cover. An officer ran for a radio. Silas climbed back to 10,000 feet, completed his navigation training, landed at Hamilton Field exactly on schedule. General Harmon was waiting in his office. Silas reported as ordered. Stood at attention, Harmon sat behind his desk, fingers steepled, expression unreadable. "Lieutenant McCrae, do you know why you're here?" "I believe so, sir." "You buzzed the Bay Bridge. You buzzed a Navy shipyard. You violated about 16 different regulations. The Navy wants you court-martialed. So does the city of San Francisco. So does the California Highway Patrol." "Yes, sir." Harmon stood, walked to the window, looked out at the flight line. "Why'd you do it?" Silas hesitated. "Sir, I wanted to see if I could." "See if you could, what? Get yourself killed, get me court-martialed for graduating a maniac." "No, sir. See if I could fly that close, that fast, without flinching." Harmon turned. "Why, Buhi?" "Because in combat, sir, I'm going to have to fly even closer, and I need to know I won't flinch." Harmon studied him for a long moment. Then he picked up a piece of paper from his desk. "This is a woman's address in Oakland. Her name is Mrs. Catherine Sullivan. You flew over her house this morning. You blew her laundry off the clothesline, scattered it all over her yard." Silas said nothing. "Here's your choice, Lieutenant. I can court-martial you. Or you can go to Mrs. Sullivan's house, apologize, help her wash her laundry, hang it back up, and mow her lawn. You have 24 hours to decide. I'll mow her lawn, sir. Harmon nodded. I thought you might. Dismissed. Silas turned to leave. Harmon spoke again. McCrae, one more thing. If you didn't want pilots to fly down Market Street, I wouldn't want them in my Air Force. But you do it again before we ship out, and I'll court-martial you myself. Clear. Clear, sir. Good. We leave for the Pacific in 2 weeks. Don't waste them. Shipping out, December 1942. The letter arrived from Margaret the day before Silas shipped out. Margaret Hollis. They'd grown up on neighboring farms, attended the same one-room schoolhouse. She was 2 years younger, dark hair, quiet voice. Practical hands that could milk cows and sew dresses and type 70 words per minute. She worked at the county courthouse now. Secretarial work. Silas had written her from California, told her about flight training, told her he was going to war, hadn't told her he loved her, hadn't found the words. Her letter was 3 pages. She wrote about Ashford, about his family, about the farm, about the war news in the newspapers. And at the end, in her neat handwriting, she wrote, "Come home safe, Silas. I'll be waiting." Silas read the letter 12 times. Then he found a photographer and had a portrait taken. Sent it to Margaret. Kept her letter in his flight jacket pocket. 2 weeks later, he was in New Guinea. The 5th Air Force operated out of Port Moresby. Jungle, heat, mosquitoes, rain that fell like a faucet, aircraft parked on steel matting because the mud was too deep for wheels, tents instead of barracks, K-rations instead of hot meals. Silas's unit was the 475th Fighter Group. They flew P-38s, escort missions for B-25 bombers, fighter sweeps over Japanese airfields, ground attack missions when needed. His squadron commander was a major named Prescott, veteran of 30 combat missions, calm under fire, respected by every pilot in the unit. Prescott called Silas into his tent the second day. "McCrae, I read your file. Captain Morrison says you fly well but shoot poorly. General Harmon says you're either crazy or brilliant. Which is it?" "I hope it's brilliant, sir." Prescott almost smiled. "We'll find out soon enough. First combat mission is tomorrow. Bomber escort to Buna. Intelligence expects light opposition. Good mission for a first-timer. You'll fly my wing. Stay close. Do what I do. Don't do anything stupid." "Yes, sir." "One more thing. Out here, we don't shoot at 350 yards. We shoot when we can hit. Some of our best pilots fire at 100 yards, some at 50. You do whatever works, but make the bullets count. We don't have infinite ammunition." Silas nodded. "Understood, sir." First combat, December 27, 1942. Dawn, 18 B-25. Mitchell bombers rolled down the steel matting and climbed into the gray sky. 12 P-38s followed. Silas was flying Prescott's wing. Second element starboard side. The formation headed north. Target Japanese supply depot at Buna. Intelligence expected light fighter opposition. Maybe 4 or 5 Japanese aircraft. Standard defensive patrol. Intelligence was wrong. At 15,000 feet over the Owen Stanley Mountains, the radio crackled. "Bandits, 11 o'clock high. Many bandits." Silas looked left, looked up, counted aircraft. Not 4 or 5, 20, maybe 25. Japanese fighters diving from the sun, Zeros and Oscars, fast, aggressive. Prescott's voice came over the radio. Calm, professional. "Ace flight, engage the fighters. Keep them off the bombers. Attack in pairs. Watch your wingman." The Japanese formation split. Half went for the bombers. Half came for the P-38 some. Prescott rolled left. Silas followed. They climbed to meet the attack. A Zero came head-on. Prescott fired. The Zero broke right, trailing smoke. Prescott followed it down. Silas looked right. An Oscar was attacking a lone P-38 from the rear. The P-38 pilot hadn't seen it. Textbook said call out the threat. Let the experienced pilot handle it. Silas didn't call out. He rolled right, full throttle. The P-38's twin engines roared. He closed on the Oscar at a combined speed of over 600 miles per hour. The Oscar pilot was focused on his target. Didn't check 6 o'clock. Didn't see Silas coming. 200 yards. Still too far. 100 yards. Getting close. 70 yards. Silas pressed the trigger. 450 caliber machine guns erupted. 2-second burst. Tracers walked up the Oscar's fuselage. The canopy shattered. The engine exploded. The Oscar rolled inverted and fell. Silas's first kill. He didn't watch it fall. Already looking for threats. Already scanning the sky. Another Oscar. This one saw him. Turned hard left. Trying to get behind him. Silas didn't turn with it. The Zero was more maneuverable. Turning fight was suicide. Instead, he climbed, used the P-38's superior speed and power, climbed to altitude, waited. The Oscar followed, slower, struggling to keep up. At 18,000 feet, Silas reversed, rolled inverted, pulled the nose down, dove on the Oscar from above. The Oscar pilot saw him coming, tried to dive away. Too late, 60 yards. Trigger, 2-second burst. The Oscar's wings separated. The aircraft tumbled, fell in pieces. Silas's second kill, 7 minutes of combat, 2 enemy aircraft destroyed. His hands were steady. His breathing was controlled. The fear was there, tight and cold in his chest, but it didn't control him. He controlled it. The Japanese fighters broke off, headed north. The B-25s continued to their target. The P-38s reformed. One aircraft was missing, shot down over the jungle, pilot's status unknown. They landed back at Port Moresby 90 minutes later. Silas climbed out of his cockpit. His flight suit was soaked with sweat. His legs were shaking, but he'd survived. Major Prescott walked over, looked at Silas, looked at the P-38, 4 guns still warm, paint scorched from muzzle blast. "McCrae, did you get any?" "2, sir, I think." Prescott nodded. "Gun camera will confirm. You did good today, kid. Real good. How close did you fire?" 60 to 70 yards, sir." Prescott whistled. "That's close. That's real close. But it worked. Keep doing it." That night, Silas wrote to Margaret, told her about the mission, told her about the fear and the training and the strange clarity that came when bullets started flying, told her he was thinking of her. He sealed the letter, addressed it to Ashford, Wisconsin, a place that felt like it belonged to another world, another life. The next morning, he woke to rain hammering on the tent. Someone was shouting about a new mission. Another bomber escort. More Japanese fighters expected. Silas McCrae rolled out of his bunk, put on his flight suit, walked to the flight line through the mud. He had 993 days of war ahead of him. He had 38 more enemy aircraft to destroy. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to develop a technique that would terrify the Japanese. A technique that would make him a legend. A technique that would carry him to a record that would stand for 80 years. But first he had to survive. One mission at a time, one day at a time, one kill at a time. The mathematics of courage were simple. Get close, stay calm, pull the trigger. The farm boy from Wisconsin was learning how to be a killer. The close kill doctrine, January 1943, Port Moresby. Silas McCrae flew his 5th combat mission on a Tuesday. Bomber escort. Standard procedure. The formation climbed to 16,000 feet, crossed the Owen Stanley Mountains. The jungle below was green and endless. Radio call: bandits, 2 o'clock, 6 aircraft. Silas looked right. 6 Japanese fighters. Oscars. They were positioning for an attack on the bombers. Major Prescott's voice: "Ace flight, engage." The P-38s broke formation. Silas followed his element leader into the attack. They dove on the enemy formation from above. Speed advantage, altitude advantage, textbook engagement. But at 300 yards, Silas's element leader opened fire and missed. The Oscar broke left. The element leader followed, guns still firing, still missing. Silas didn't fire. He was closer now. 200 yards, 150, 100, 70 yards. He pressed the trigger. 2 seconds. The Oscar's engine disintegrated. Fuel sprayed. Fire erupted. The aircraft fell spinning. 3rd kill. After the mission, Prescott pulled him aside. "McCrae, I watched you. You didn't fire until you were almost in collision range." "No, sir." "Why not?" "Because I can't hit at 300 yards, sir, but I can hit at 70. Prescott nodded slowly. "You're going to get yourself killed flying that close." "Maybe, sir, but at least my bullets will count." Prescott was quiet for a moment. Then, "How many rounds did you fire?" "1 burst, 2 seconds." "How many rounds is that?" "Approximately 106 rounds, sir." "And you destroyed 1 enemy aircraft. That's a 100% hit ratio. Do you know what the Air Force average is?" "No, sir." 2%. Most pilots empty their guns and hit nothing. You fired 1 burst and killed an aircraft. Prescott paused. "Keep doing what you're doing, McCrae. Just don't get so close you can't pull out." Over the next 11 months, Silas refined his technique. Every mission, every engagement, he practiced the approach, the timing, the patience. He learned to wait, to hold fire when instincts screamed to shoot. to let the enemy fill his windscreen before touching the trigger. He learned to manage fear, the fear that came from flying into debris fields, from watching enemy aircraft explode 50 yards in front of him, from feeling metal fragments punch through his wings. He learned to trust mathematics. At 70 yards with 4 nose-mounted guns, the outcome was inevitable. The bullet spread was 8 feet. The Zero's fuselage was 29 feet long. Simple geometry. The bullets had nowhere to go except through the target. By December 1943, Silas McCrae had 28 confirmed kills. Every kill at close range. Every kill with minimal ammunition expenditure. Every kill using a technique the textbooks never mentioned. His wingmen started calling it the close kill doctrine. Word spread through the 5th Air Force. Other pilots tried to copy it. Some succeeded. Most didn't, because flying to 70 yards required something beyond skill. It required nerve that couldn't be taught. The mathematics of aerial gunnery. To understand why Silas McCrae's technique worked, you need to understand the mathematics of aerial gunnery, the physics that turned most combat into wasted ammunition and empty sky. The problem started with distance. Standard Air Force doctrine said open fire at 350 yards. The reasoning was sound. At 350 yards, you had time to observe hits, time to correct aim, time to kill the target before it killed you. But 350 yards introduced variables, massive variables. First, bullet flight time. A 50 caliber round traveled at 2,800 feet per second. At 350 yards, 1,050 feet, the bullet needed 0.37 seconds to reach the target. 0.37 seconds doesn't sound like much. But the enemy aircraft wasn't stationary. It was moving. At 250 miles per hour, an aircraft traveled 367 feet per second. In 0.37 seconds, the target moved 135 feet. You weren't shooting at where the target was, you were shooting at where the target would be. And predicting that location required mathematics most pilots couldn't calculate in their heads while someone was shooting at them. Second, deflection angle. If the target flew perpendicular to your flight path, a 90-degree crossing shot, you needed to aim ahead of the target. Not a little ahead, 75 feet ahead. Imagine trying to hit a target the size of a truck traveling at 250 miles per hour by aiming 75 feet in front of it while you're also traveling at 250 miles per hour, while the target is maneuvering, while you're maneuvering, while gravity is pulling your bullets down, while wind is pushing them sideways. Most pilots couldn't do it. They fired anyway, emptied their guns, hit nothing. The average accuracy rate in aerial combat was 2%. 98 bullets out of every 100 fired in combat missed their targets completely. Silas McCrae understood this. He'd lived it during training. He couldn't calculate deflection angles, couldn't predict target movement, couldn't hit at 350 yards. So he changed the equation. At 70 yards, 210 feet, bullet flight time dropped to 0.075 seconds. The target only moved 27 feet in that time. Lead requirement dropped from 75 feet to 15 feet. But that wasn't the real advantage. The real advantage was convergence, or rather, the lack of need for convergence. Single-engine fighters mounted guns in the wings. Wing guns converged at a specific point, usually 300 yards. Inside that range, the bullets spread apart. Outside that range, they spread apart. Only at the convergence point did all bullets meet. The P-38 Lightning was different. 450 caliber machine guns mounted in the nose, 120 millimeter cannon between them. All 5 weapons fired down the center line. No convergence needed. Where the nose pointed, the bullets went. At 70 yards, those 450 caliber guns created a bullet pattern 8 feet in diameter. A Japanese Zero's fuselage was 29 feet long and 6 feet wide at the cockpit. The mathematics became simple. Point the nose at the target. Pull the trigger. 8 feet of bullets into a 29-foot target. The outcome wasn't probability. It was certainty. A 2-second burst fired 106 rounds. At 70 yards, those rounds created a wall of metal. The enemy aircraft had to fly through that wall, and nothing flew through a wall of 50 caliber bullets. Nothing. This was why Silas McCrae killed with single bursts while other pilots emptied their guns. This was why he flew missions and came home with ammunition remaining. This was why his kill ratio climbed while others struggled. He had eliminated variables, reduced the equation to its simplest form. Distance plus nose guns plus patience equals dead enemy. The mathematics weren't just favorable, they were inevitable. Building the record. March 1943. Silas had 12 kills. He was no longer the new pilot. He was the experienced one. The one younger pilots watched. The one they asked for advice. How do you do it, McCrae? How do you fly that close? Silas's answer was always the same. You focus on the target. Not the fear, not the debris, just the target. June 1943, 16 kills. The Japanese started recognizing P-38s that flew close, started avoiding them. Radio intercepts showed Japanese pilots warning each other about the twin-tailed aircraft that comes from nowhere. August 1943, 20 kills. Silas received orders for a 3-day leave. He spent it in Port Moresby, wrote 7 letters to Margaret, received 4 letters from her. She sent a photograph. Margaret standing in front of the courthouse. Dark hair, gentle smile, the same smile he remembered from Ashford. He mounted the photograph on his instrument panel. Right next to the airspeed indicator. Every mission, every flight, Margaret's face watching him. September 1943, 26 kills. Silas McCrae became the top-scoring American ace in any theater. Newspapers back home picked up the story. Wisconsin farm boy tops all aces. His mother saved the clippings, sent them in letters that took 6 weeks to arrive. But Silas wasn't the only American pilot accumulating victories. 4 others were close behind. Cole Rivera, Pacific Theater, P-38 pilot, 24 kills by September 1943. Rivera was aggressive, fearless, some said reckless. He flew missions when he should have been grounded, hunted kills like other men hunted trophies. His fellow pilots worried about him. Theodore Grantham, Navy, carrier-based, F-6F Hellcat pilot, 19 kills by September 1943. Grantham was 33 years old, older than most pilots. He'd survived the sinking of USS Wasp, should have taken a safe posting, requested combat instead. Methodical, professional, deadly. Augustus Calloway, Marine Corps, F-4U Corsair pilot, 22 kills by September 1943. Calloway drank, fought, ignored regulations, but in the cockpit he was coldly efficient. His squadron called themselves the Black Sheep. The name fit. Piotr Zanetti, European Theater, P-47 Thunderbolt pilot, 26 kills by September 1943. Zanetti was the son of Polish and Italian immigrants. When Nazi Germany invaded Poland, it became personal. He'd flown with the RAF before transferring to the American Air Force. He knew how to stay alive. 4 pilots, 5 including Silas. Between them, they would eventually destroy 168 enemy aircraft. But in September 1943, the race was just beginning. Breaking the record, winter 1943, the missions continued. Bomber escorts, fighter sweeps, ground attack missions when needed. Silas flew 4 missions per week, sometimes 5. Every mission was another chance to encounter the enemy, another chance to add to his score. January 1944, 30 kills. February 1944, 32 kills. March 1944, 33 kills. The Pacific War was intensifying. American forces were advancing, island by island, base by base. Japanese resistance was fierce, desperate. Every mile was paid for in blood. Silas flew through it all, calm, methodical. His close kills technique had become instinct. He didn't think about the mathematics anymore, didn't calculate angles, just flew, got close, fired, killed. April 15, 1944. Mission briefing. Bomber escort to Wewak. Intelligence expected heavy fighter opposition. 20 P-38s, 30 B-25s. Morning takeoff. The formation climbing to 18,000 feet. Headed northwest. At 40 minutes into the flight, radar detected enemy aircraft. Bandits, 12 o'clock, 20-plus aircraft. Silas was leading his flight that day. 4 P-38s, his responsibility. Ace flight arm guns, prepared to engage. The Japanese formation came from the sun. Zeros and Oscars. Maybe 30 aircraft. They split into 3 groups. High, middle, low. Classic pincer attack. Silas took his flight high. Met the enemy head-on. At 3 miles, he could see them clearly. At 1 mile, he selected his target. Lead 0. Slightly ahead of the formation. The closing speed was 600 miles per hour. At that speed, decisions happened in fractions of seconds. Head-on pass. The 0 fired first. Tracers streaked past Silas's canopy. He didn't flinch. Held his course. Held his aim. 90 yards. Too far. 80 yards. Close enough. Trigger. 3-second burst. Nose to nose. The 0's propeller disintegrated. Engine exploded. The 0 rolled left and fell. 33rd kill. Silas rolled right, climbed, looked for threats. A Zero was pursuing one of his wingmen. Bad position. Wingman didn't see it. Silas reversed hard, full throttle. The P-38 responded instantly. He closed on the Zero from the side. Deflection shot, difficult angle. He didn't fire at 300 yards. Waited. 100 yards. 70 yards. Trigger. 2-second burst. The bullets walked across the Zero's wing root. The wings separated. The Zero tumbled. 34th kill. The furball lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, the Japanese formation was broken. 8 enemy aircraft destroyed. 2 P-38s damaged. No losses. Silas landed with fuel to spare. Ammunition to spare. No damage to his aircraft. That afternoon, Major Prescott called him to operations. "McCrae, today's mission gave you 37 confirmed kills. Do you know what that means?" "No, sir." "Eddie Rickenbacker, World War I, 26 kills, American record for 25 years. You just broke it by 11. Silas nodded, didn't know what to say. Prescott continued, "5th Air Force is sending you home. Publicity tour, war bonds, newspaper interviews, the whole show. You ship out next week." "Sir, I'd rather stay with the unit." "I know you would, but this isn't a request, it's an order. You've done your part, McCrae. You've done more than your part. Time to let someone else do the fighting for a while." Silas returned to his tent, sat on his bunk, 37 kills, record broken. War over for him. He should have felt relief, should have felt pride. Instead, he felt empty. Going home, May 1944, San Francisco. Silas stepped off the transport ship wearing a fresh uniform. Ribbons on his chest, captain's bars on his shoulders, Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, Air Medal with 12 oak leaf clusters. The reporters were waiting. Cameras, questions, headlines. "Captain McCrae, how does it feel to be America's top ace?" "It feels like I'm standing here while better men are still fighting." "What's your secret? How do you shoot down so many enemy aircraft?" "I fly close. I don't miss." "What's next for you?" "I'm going home to Wisconsin to see my family." The train ride took 3 days. Silas watched America roll past the windows. Farms, towns, cities, people who didn't know what war looked like, who didn't know what burning aircraft smelled like, who didn't know the sound a man makes when he dies over the radio. He arrived in Ashford on a Thursday afternoon. The entire town was waiting at the train station. 843 people, banners, flags, a brass band playing the national anthem. His mother cried, his father shook his hand, his siblings crowded around him, and Margaret was there. Dark hair, gentle smile. She didn't say anything, just looked at him. And Silas knew. He proposed that night, on the front porch of her parents' house. No ring, no fancy words. Just, "Margaret, will you marry me?" She said yes. They were married 3 weeks later. Small church in Ashford. 200 guests, the whole town. Silas wore his dress uniform. Margaret wore white. The ceremony lasted 15 minutes. The reception lasted 6 hours. Dancing, food, laughter. For one day, Silas McCrae wasn't a fighter pilot. He was just a farm boy who'd come home. That night, in the small room above her parents' house, Margaret asked him about the war. "Was it terrible?" "Yes." "Do you want to talk about it?" "No." She held his hand. "Then we won't." They spent 2 months in Wisconsin. Silas helped on his father's farm, fixed tractors, harvested wheat, worked until his hands hurt. It felt good, normal, real. But at night, he dreamed about the cockpit, about the sky, about the hunt. In July, a telegram arrived. 5th Air Force. General Harmon requested his return. Not ordered. Requested. The war was intensifying. They needed experienced pilots. Needed instructors who could teach the new pilots how to survive. Silas read the telegram 3 times. Looked at Margaret. "I have to go back." She didn't cry, didn't argue, just nodded. "I know. I'll be teaching. Instructor duty. No combat missions." "I know." But they both knew he was lying. September 1944. Port Moresby. Silas McCrae returned to the Pacific, officially assigned as a gunnery instructor. His job was to teach new pilots close combat tactics, to share what he'd learned, to save lives through knowledge. General Harmon called him in the first day. "McCrae, you're here to teach, not to fight. Your combat days are over. Clear." "Clear, sir. I'm serious. You've done enough. You're not to volunteer for combat missions. You're not to fly fighter sweeps. You're not to engage the enemy unless fired upon first. Do you understand?" "I understand, sir." Harmon studied him. I don't believe you, but I'm ordering you anyway. Stay on the ground. Teach. That's an order. Silas saluted. Yes, sir. He taught for 2 weeks. Classroom lectures, flight demonstrations. He showed the new pilots his technique, explained the mathematics, emphasized patience. But on September 23, 1944, a mission came down. Fighter sweep over the Philippines. New operational area. Heavy enemy presence expected. 6 B-38s. 2 experienced pilots. 4 rookies. The squadron needed 1 more experienced pilot to lead the second element. Someone who knew the close kill doctrine. Someone who could keep the rookies alive. Silas volunteered. The operations officer hesitated. McCrae General Harmon said, I'm the gunnery instructor. I'm teaching them in the air. That's my job. The officer knew it was a rationalization. Knew Harmon would be furious. But they needed pilots, needed experience. Wheels up at 0600. Don't get yourself killed. Silas flew the mission, encountered 12 Japanese fighters, destroyed 2, both at 70 yards, both with single bursts, brought all 4 rookies home alive. He flew another mission 3 days later. Another sweep, 4 kills, then another, 3 kills. General Harmon didn't court-martial him, didn't ground him, just looked at him across his desk and said, You can't help yourself, can you? No, sir, I can't. Then fly on, but you stay with the instructors. You don't go hunting, you protect the new pilots. That's your mission. Yes, sir. Over the next 2 months, Silas flew 24 combat missions, destroyed 3 enemy aircraft, brought home every pilot under his command. By December 1944, he had 40 total claims, but the 5th Air Force verification process was strict. Gun camera footage, witness testimony, wreckage confirmation when possible. 7 of his claims couldn't be fully verified. Probable kills, not confirmed. Official count, 33 kills. Then came December 3rd, Mindoro Island, the mission that would change everything. But that's a story for another time. December 3rd, 1944, Mindoro Island. Dawn broke over Port Moresby like a wound. Red sky, heavy clouds. The kind of morning that made experienced pilots check their aircraft twice. Mission briefing at 0500, 18 B-25, Mitchell bombers. Target Japanese airfield on Mindoro Island. Intelligence reports indicated the airfield was operational. Possibly 30 aircraft on the ground. Fighter cover expected. The escort, 7 P-38 Lightnings. 2 elements. Silas McCrae would lead the second element. 3 aircraft. 2 of his pilots were on their 5th combat mission. The 3rd was on his 2nd. General Harmon pulled Silas aside before takeoff. This is a deep strike, McCrae. 500 miles. If you get in trouble, you're a long way from home. Understood, sir. Bring them back, all of them. I will, sir. Wheels up at 0615. The formation climbed to 16,000 feet, headed northwest. The bombers flew in tight formation. 18 aircraft, 144 men. Their lives depended on 7 P-38s keeping the enemy away. Silas checked his instruments. Fuel full, ammunition 1,500 rounds, oil pressure normal, both engines running smooth. He looked at Margaret's photograph, her face steady, unchanging, a fixed point in a world of chaos. The flight took 90 minutes, ocean below, clouds above. The Philippines appeared on the horizon at 0740, mountains, jungle, coastline. At 0835, the radio crackled. Bogies bearing 350, altitude unknown, multiple contacts. Silas looked northwest, saw nothing, then saw everything. Aircraft climbing from low altitude, many aircraft, more than the intelligence estimate, more than 30. He counted quickly. 35, maybe 40. Zeros, Oscars, Tonys, and something new, sleeker, faster, a Frank, the Japanese Army's newest fighter. Ace leader, this is Ace 2. I count 30+ bandits. Request permission to engage. The lead element commander, permission granted. Ace 2, take your element high. We'll take them low. Keep them off the bombers. Copy. Ace 212223 on me. Climbing to Angels 20. Silas pushed the throttles forward. The P-38 climbed. His element followed. Good. They were staying tight, staying disciplined. At 20,000 feet, he leveled off. The Japanese formation was below him now, climbing toward the bombers. They hadn't seen the P-38S yet. Altitude advantage, to beat advantage, was to damage. Position advantage. Silas selected his target. Lead Oscar. Slightly ahead of the formation. The pilot who was probably the flight leader. Ace 2 flight, we're going in. Follow my attack pattern. Fire only when close. Watch your targets. He rolled inverted, pulled the nose down. Dove. The airspeed indicator climbed. 300, 350, 400. The P-38 screamed. Metal vibrated. The enemy aircraft grew larger. At 1,000 feet separation, the Oscar pilot saw him. Started to turn. Too late. Silas didn't fire at 200 yards. Didn't fire at 100 yards. 75 yards. Trigger. 2-second burst. The Oscar's engine exploded. Fire and smoke. The aircraft rolled right. Fell. First kill. Silas pulled up hard. 6 Gs. The world grayed at the edges. He relaxed the pull. Vision cleared. Looked for threats. A Tony was diving on one of his wingmen. Ace 2-3. The rookie on his second mission. Silas reversed. Hard left turn. Full throttle. The P-38 responded. He closed the distance. The Tony pilot was focused on his target. Didn't check 6. Silas came from the side. Deflection shot. Difficult. He waited. Let the angle decrease. Let the geometry align. 60 yards. Trigger. 3-second burst. Bullets walked across the Tony's fuselage. Cockpit. Wing root. The canopy shattered. The Tony rolled inverted. Fell smoking. Second kill. 2-3, you're clear. Check 6 before you engage. Copy 2-1, thank you. The furball developed. Aircraft everywhere. Turning, diving, climbing. Tracers crisscrossing the sky. Radio calls overlapping. Chaos. Silas stayed calm. Scanned. Prioritized. Found targets. An Oscar was attacking a B-25. Stern chase. The bomber's gunners were firing. Missing. The Oscar closed. Preparing to fire. Silas came from above. Dove on the Oscar. Speed advantage. The Oscar pilot saw him. Tried to brake. Not fast enough. 60 yards. Trigger. 2-second burst. The Oscar's tail section separated. The aircraft tumbled. Out of control. Third kill. He pulled up. Looked for his element. 2-2 was engaged with 2 zeros. Holding his own. 2-3 was climbing. Good. Staying out of trouble. A 0 appeared at Silas's 11 o'clock. Head-on approach. Both pilots saw each other simultaneously. Both turned toward each other. Mutual aggression. The closing speed was 600 miles per hour. Time to react seconds. The 0 fired first. Tracers. Silas didn't flinch. Held his course. Held his aim. 100 yards. Too far. 90 yards. Close enough. Trigger. 4 guns. 1-second burst. The 0's propeller disintegrated. Engine seized. The 0 dove. 4th kill. But something was wrong. Silas felt it before he saw it. Vibration. His right engine. Oil pressure dropping. He looked right. The engine nacelle was damaged. Metal torn. Oil streaming. Debris from one of the kills had hit him. He reduced throttle on the right engine. The vibration decreased, but didn't stop. Oil pressure continued dropping. He had 2 choices. Return to base on one engine, or stay and keep fighting. He looked down. The bombers were under attack. 3 Oscars diving on them. His element was outnumbered. 2-3 was being pursued by 2 zeros. He looked at Margaret's photograph. Oil spray had splattered across the glass. Her face was partially obscured. He stayed. A Frank, the new fighter, was climbing toward him. Fast. Aggressive. The pilot was good. Experienced. Silas turned into him. Met the attack. The Frank opened fire at 300 yards. Long range. Wasting ammunition. Silas held his fire. Closed the distance. The Frank pilot realized too late that Silas wasn't going to break off. 80 yards. Trigger. The Frank was tougher than a 0. Better armor. Better construction. Silas's first burst hit but didn't kill. The Frank's engine smoked but kept running. Silas fired again. 3-second burst. Concentrated fire on the engine. The Frank's cowling peeled back. Fire erupted. The pilot bailed out. 5th kill. Ammunition counter 600 rounds remaining. Started with 1,500. 900 rounds expended. 5 kills. 180 rounds per kill. Efficient. But his right engine was dying. Oil pressure critical. Temperature rising. Vibration increasing. Below, an Oscar was lining up on a damaged B-25. The bomber was trailing smoke. Losing altitude. The Oscar was closing for the kill. Silas dove. Full throttle on the left engine. Reduced throttle on the right. The P-38 descended fast. Too fast. He pulled back. Bled speed. The Oscar pilot was focused on the bomber. Didn't see Silas until too late. 70 yards. Trigger. 2-second burst. The Oscar exploded. Debris everywhere. Silas flew through the cloud of wreckage. Metal fragments hammered his aircraft. Something punched through the canopy. Glass starred. Wind screamed. Sixth kill. The damaged B-25 continued flying. Crew saved. Silas climbed back to altitude. Looked for threats. His element was scattered. 2-2 was heading home. Damaged. 2-3 was still engaged with a 0, and there was one more enemy. A Tony. Chasing 2-3. The rookie couldn't shake him. Silas turned hard, intercepted. The Tony pilot saw him coming, broke off from 2-3, turned to face Silas. Both pilots closed, head on again. But this time Silas's right engine was failing. His aircraft was damaged. He was low on ammunition. He didn't hesitate. Held his course. 80 yards. Trigger. Last long burst. The Tony's wing root shattered. The wing folded. The aircraft disintegrated. Seventh kill. Ammunition counter, 180 rounds remaining. Out of 1,500. 90% expended. Fuel warning light, 12 minutes to critical. Oil pressure right engine 0. The mission was over. The Japanese formation was broken. 8 enemy aircraft destroyed, 7 by Silas. The bombers continued to their target. Silas keyed his radio. Ace-2 flight RTB, form on me. 2-3 appeared on his wing. 2-1, you're trailing smoke. Copy, I'm aware. Stay in formation. They turned southeast, headed for home. But Silas knew he wouldn't make it. The right engine was seizing, temperature red line. The propeller was windmilling, creating drag. He had 2 options: shut down the right engine and fly home on 1, or find somewhere closer to land. He checked his map. Tacloban, forward airstrip, 50 miles southeast. Steel matting, emergency field. Ace 2-3, I'm diverting to Tacloban. You continue to Port Moresby. Sir, I can escort you. Negative, you're low on fuel. Go home. Yes, sir. The P-38 flew on 1 engine. Silas maintained altitude. Conserved fuel. The right engine finally seized completely. The propeller stopped, just a dead weight now. The left engine was running rough, debris damage. It wouldn't last long. Tacloban appeared ahead. The airstrip was visible. Steel matting. Short. No tower. Just an emergency field carved out of the jungle. Silas keyed the radio. Tacloban Tower, this is Ace 2-1, emergency landing. Engine failure, gear up approach. Copy Ace 2-1, field is clear. Wind 090 at 10 knots. Silas set up his approach. Descended. The left engine coughed, sputtered. Temperature rising. It was dying too. He had one chance, get the aircraft on the ground before both engines quit. 500 feet, 400, 300. The left engine seized. Both engines dead. The P-38 became a glider. Heavy, ungainly, falling. He held the nose up. Bled speed. The steel matting rushed up. He flared. The P-38's belly hit the matting. Sparks. Screeching metal. The aircraft slid. 500 feet, 300, 100. It stopped. Silas sat in the cockpit, hands shaking, heart hammering. Alive. He climbed out. His flight suit was soaked with sweat and oil. His hands were cut from broken glass. But he was alive. The ground crew ran to the aircraft, looked at the damage. Right engine destroyed, left engine seized, fuselage punctured in 14 places, canopy shattered, oil everywhere. The crew chief whistled. Sir, how did you fly this thing? Carefully. That night, Silas wrote the mission report. 7 confirmed kills. December 3rd, 1944. Career total 44 claims. Pending verification. 2 weeks later, the verification came through. Gun camera footage confirmed 7 kills. But analysts reviewing his entire combat record found discrepancies. 4 previous claims couldn't be fully verified. Probable kills, not confirmed. Final verified count 40 kills. Silas McCrae, farm boy from Wisconsin, America's deadliest fighter pilot. General Harmon called him to headquarters the next day. McCrae, you're done. I'm grounding you. Permanently. No arguments, no appeals. You've destroyed 40 enemy aircraft. You've flown 196 combat missions. You've survived things that should have killed you a dozen times over. Your war is over. Sir. That's an order, Captain Shi. Go home. Marry that girl. Live your life. You have earned it. Silas saluted. Yes, sir. He shipped out in January 1945. Left the Pacific. Left the war. Left the sky where he'd become a legend. He went home to Wisconsin. To Margaret. To Ashford. To a life that felt impossible after everything he'd seen. But the sky called to him. Still called. Always would. Act 3. Impact the numbers. Silas McRae finished the war with 40 confirmed aerial victories, 196 combat missions, 487 combat hours, never shot down in combat, never wounded in action. 4 other American pilots came close to his record. Cole Rivera, Pacific Theater, 38 kills. Rivera died January 9, 1945. Low-altitude stall during a combat mission over Luzon. He was chasing his 40th kill. Pushed too hard, too low. The P-38 stalled. No altitude to recover. Rivera was 24 years old. Theodore Grantham, Navy, 34 kills. Grantham survived the war, returned home, raised a family, became a commercial airline pilot. Died in 1996 at age 84. The only top ace who lived long enough to see old age. Augustus Calloway, Marine Corps, 28 kills. Shot down over Rabaul in January 1944. Survived the crash, captured by the Japanese. Spent 18 months as a prisoner of war, beaten, starved, tortured. Released in August 1945, weighing 110 pounds. Died in 1988. Never spoke about the prison camp. Piotr Zanetti, European Theater, 28 kills. Shot down over Germany in July 1944. Survived. Evaded capture for 5 days. Caught. Spent the rest of the war in Stalag Luft 1. After the war, rejoined the Air Force. Flew F-86 Sabres in Korea. Shot down 6.5 more MiGs. Total career 34.5 kills. One of 7 American pilots to become an ace in 2 wars. Retired as a colonel, 5 pilots. 168 combined kills. 3 didn't live to see retirement age. 1 spent years as a prisoner. Only 1 escaped unmarked. The mathematics of war were brutal. Going home, March 1945, Ashford, Wisconsin. The town held a parade for Silas. 800 people lined Main Street, flags, banners, the brass band. The mayor gave a speech about heroes and sacrifice and duty. Silas stood on a platform wearing his uniform. 40 mission markers painted on his flight jacket, ribbons on his chest. But all he could think about was the pilots who hadn't come home, the ones whose names would never appear in newspapers, the ones whose families would receive folded flags and empty condolences. Margaret stood beside him, held his hand. She understood without words. That night, they sat on her parents' porch, spring air, stars overhead, crickets in the fields. "What will you do now?" she asked. "I don't know. Farm, maybe. Help my father." "You don't want to farm." He was quiet for a long moment. "No, I don't." "Then what?" "Lockheed offered me a test pilot, new aircraft, and jets." She didn't say anything, just held his hand tighter. "It's good pay, important work, helping develop the next generation of fighters. It's dangerous. Flying is always dangerous. The war is over, Silas. You don't have to keep risking your life. I know, but I don't know how to do anything else." She looked at him. "Then do it. Fly. Just promise me you'll come home." "I promise," he reported to Lockheed in May. Burbank, California. The facility was massive. Hangars, runways, laboratories, the future of aviation. They started him on the P-80 Shooting Star, America's first operational jet fighter. No propellers, pure turbine power, maximum speed 550 miles per hour. Faster than anything Silas had ever flown. The training was intensive. Jet engines operated differently than piston engines. Different fuel systems, different procedures, different emergencies. One of the critical procedures, the auxiliary fuel pump. The P-80's jet engine couldn't draw enough fuel during climb-out using the engine-driven pump alone. You needed the auxiliary pump engaged. Always. Without it, the engine would flame out at low altitude. Silas learned the checklist. Practiced it. Engine start. Pre-flight checks. Auxiliary fuel pump on. Takeoff roll. Climb out. Only after reaching safe altitude could you switch to engine-driven pump only. He flew the P-80 for 3 months. 20 test flights. No incidents. The aircraft was fast. Responsive. The future. August 8, 1945. The morning started with news. The radio in the pilot's ready room carried the announcement. The Soviet Union had declared war on Japan. Soviet forces were invading Manchuria. The war in the Pacific was entering its final phase. 2 days earlier, an atomic bomb had destroyed Hiroshima. Yesterday, another had destroyed Nagasaki. The Japanese Empire was collapsing. Silas sat in the ready room listening, thinking about the pilots still fighting, still dying, so close to the end. His flight was scheduled for 1,000 hours. Routine test flight, engine performance evaluation. 30 minutes, standard procedure. He walked to the flight line. The P-80 sat gleaming in the California sun. Silver metal, sleek lines, the future of aerial warfare. He performed the walk-around, checked control surfaces, checked fuel, checked tires, everything perfect. He climbed into the cockpit, strapped in, ran through the pre-start checklist. The radio in the ready room was still broadcasting news. Soviet invasion, Japanese resistance crumbling. The war would be over soon, maybe days, maybe weeks. Silas's mind was elsewhere, thinking about Margaret, about going home, about what came next. He started the engine. The jet turbine spooled up, smooth, powerful, a different sound than piston engines. A howl instead of a roar. Pre-flight checks, control surfaces check, instruments check, fuel check, auxiliary fuel pump. The radio news continued in the background. Soviet forces pushing south, Japanese defenses breaking. Silas looked at the checklist, looked at the auxiliary fuel pump switch. He meant to flip it, meant to engage it. But his mind was on the news, on the war ending, on everything changing. He missed it. Tower cleared him for takeoff. He advanced the throttle. The P-80 rolled down the runway, accelerated, rotated at 110 miles per hour. Lifted. Climbing through 750 feet, the engine flamed out. Total silence. Just wind. The aircraft became a glider. Heavy. Falling. Silas reacted instantly. Tried to restart. No time. Tried to turn back to the runway. No altitude. One option left: eject. He pulled the ejection handle. The canopy blew off. The seat fired. But 750 feet wasn't enough. The parachute deployed, started to open. Didn't have time. Silas McCrae hit the ground at terminal velocity. He died instantly. 24 years old. August 8, 1945. The same day the Soviet Union entered the Pacific War. 2 days after Hiroshima. 1 day after Nagasaki. The next morning, newspapers ran two stories side by side. Soviet forces invade Manchuria. Japanese empire crumbling. America's top ace killed in test flight. 40 victories lost to forgotten switch. Epilogue legacy. They buried Silas McCrae with full military honors. Ashford Cemetery. The entire town attended. 843 people. And Margaret. She stood at the graveside wearing black. Didn't cry. Held herself straight. When they presented her with the folded flag, she held it against her chest and nodded once. The P-38 model he'd given her before shipping out sat on the casket. Painted silver. Twin booms, twin engines, his aircraft, his weapon, his life. His mother stood beside the grave. She didn't cry either. Just looked at the casket and said quietly, "He died flying. That's what he wanted." But that wasn't what he wanted. What he wanted was to come home, to live with Margaret, to raise children, to grow old. The war had spared him. 200 missions, 500 hours of combat, 40 enemy aircraft destroyed. He'd survived the impossible. And he died from a forgotten switch. The record stands. 80 years later, no American pilot has broken Silas McCrae's 40 confirmed victories. The number remains untouched, unreachable, because warfare changed. Jets, missiles, beyond visual range combat. The dogfight became obsolete. The close kill doctrine became history. Silas McCrae's 40 victories represent the ceiling of the propeller age, the maximum achievement possible in that specific kind of war. In that specific kind of skamba. The Silas McCrae Veterans Museum opened in Superior, Wisconsin in 1994. A P-38 Lightning sits in the main hall. Not his aircraft, that one crashed in the Pacific, but the same model. Painted silver, twin booms, twin engines. Margaret's photograph is mounted on the instrument panel, right next to the airspeed indicator, where Silas kept it during every combat mission. The McCrae Memorial Airfield in Ashford was dedicated in 1948. A small plaque lists his accomplishments: 40 victories, 196 missions, Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, Medal of Honor. The Medal of Honor citation reads in part, though assigned to instructor duty and neither required nor expected to perform combat missions, Captain McCrae voluntarily engaged in repeated combat operations. His extraordinary heroism and selfless devotion to duty reflected the highest traditions of military service. 4 other pilots came within 12 kills of Silas McCrae's record. Cole Rivera died chasing it. Augustus Calloway survived prison camp. Piotr Zanetti flew in 2 wars. Theodore Grantham lived to old age. Together, the five of them destroyed 168 enemy aircraft. Together, they changed how America fought in the sky. Together, they proved that courage could overcome impossible odds. But only one reached 40. Only one became the deadliest. Only one set a record that has stood for 80 years. Silas McCrae, farm boy from Wisconsin, eldest of 9 children. Poor shot at long range. Learned to fly close instead. He didn't set out to be the best. He set out to bring his friends home, to protect the bombers, to do his duty. The mathematics of aerial combat were unforgiving. Distance, deflection, time, variables that turn most combat into wasted ammunition and empty sky. Silas changed the mathematics, eliminated the variables, reduced the equation to its simplest form. Get close, stay calm, pull the trigger. It worked. 196 times, 40 kills, 0 losses, until a forgotten switch on a peaceful morning ended what 200 combat missions could not. His grave is simple. Gray stone, name, rank, dates, Medal of Honor emblem. And 4 words, America's deadliest fighter pilot. The record stands 80 years, unbroken, because some achievements belong to a specific moment in history, a specific kind of war, a specific kind of courage. Silas McCrae had all 3. 5 men, 168 kills, one record that will never fall. The mathematics were impossible. The courage was not. The farm boy who became a legend. The pilot who flew close enough to see his enemies' faces. The man who came home from war only to die in peace. 40 victories, 24 years, one forgotten switch. This was Silas McCrae. This was his war. This was his sky, and the record stands.